If we switch topics a little bit, let's talk a little about the exercise and workout. I know, the term cardio queen, really kind of goes hand in hand with moms who go to the gym. They want to get in shape and they're doing the elliptical or treadmill for an hour or more, or taking these classes and still not seeing results, right? And that only lasts for so long until they eventually quit their programs. What are your thoughts about that? And then what are your opinions about how we can, change that habit?
Sure. So I am guilty of being a cardio queen myself. I have spent many, many hours doing cardio, and actually it resulted in me being a long distance runner and doing triathlons and doing a lot of really, really cool things. But that was when I was like in my 20s and had all this extra time. And moms don't have that. And so I don't expect moms to train for a half marathon or a marathon unless it's something that's really something you feel passionate about. Maybe it's on your bucket list. It's something you want to do, but it's not necessary. And we know now that people that spend these hours upon hours doing this long, steady state cardio don't have any more benefit than the people who are doing shorter, intense workouts, who are doing consistent strength training, which is huge for moms, and will not bulk you up, I promise.
Glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask about that next.
Yeah, that's like a whole nother video interview. But so it's really, like I said earlier, it's so much more about working out smart rather than working out long. And when it comes to cardio, the old school thinking is work out long and just clock that time. And first of all, it's a waste of time in terms of the benefits that you get. You don't burn the calories that you could burn in a shorter amount of time doing high intensity intervals. And you waste so much time that could be spent with your family, being productive, getting stuff done, doing your laundry, doing your dishes, whatever. There's a million things you could do with that time. So that's what my program focuses on, is building strength, which involves doing body weight exercises for the most part. Like I said, my program is a program that you can do at home with pretty much no equipment except for your body weight. So it's building strength and doing full body exercises. And so when you're doing those full body exercises, your heart rate is like cranking the whole time, which is perfect for burning calories in the workout, just like you would in a standard cardio session. But then at the same time, you're building that strength, and building that lean muscle mass is what's going to really get that metabolism fired up and revved up and running round the clock. And the benefit of having that metabolism running round the clock is way more impressive than doing cardio for an hour and then having your heart rate come down and kind of just shut down for the rest of the day. It's really important that you get those intervals in where you're getting those peaks in your heart rate and your metabolism, so that your metabolism is stimulated in a way that gives you round-the-clock calorie burning and round-the-clock metabolic benefits.
Exactly.
And as a mom, it's imperative in terms of using your time wisely in the gym or at home.
Exactly. And then, which is, what you're talking about is basically the afterburn effect that you only get when you're doing a very high intensity exercise routine, as long as you haven't plateaued because you're doing varied exercise, which I'm sure your program offers a lot of variety.
Right.
But that afterburn mechanism, you don't get that with slow, steady state cardio. So you have to get into those high peaks and valleys to benefit. And like you said, you're benefiting when you're sleeping, when you're cleaning, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to have a much higher calorie burn, which is going to equate to more fat loss. So you're getting way more bang for your buck from doing that type of workout than going to the gym for, doing an hour or however long you'd be doing it.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's a big mental shift for a lot of women. It takes some practice and it takes some trust in the person that's advising you to be like, okay, I'm going to try this. We'll see. But I haven't ever had anyone come back to me and say, I'm going to go back to just doing my hour on the elliptical.
Yeah. And not only that, but I'm sure, you don't ever get anybody saying after their 30 minutes of intervals, oh, can I do 15 more minutes?
Right.
Usually they're done.
Yeah. And it's funny, I have my boot camp that I run locally. I've had a couple women say, like, is it okay after boot camp if maybe I get on the treadmill for like 20, 30 minutes? And they'll say this before they come to class. And then they go through class and they're like, yeah, never mind. They've done like more than they need to just in boot camp, and they shouldn't have any extra energy or, any extra work left to get back on the treadmill. I mean, they should really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm done.
Exactly. And now, as something we can give the moms watching this that they can walk away from and include into their workouts today, talking about intensity level, what's a good measurement that you give your clients to work off so that they know they're in the right zone? And then how much should they be resting in between? What's an example of something you do?
So I have people use a scale of 1 to 10 for a lot of things. And so I use this in my boot camps. I use this when I teach cycling. I use this with my program here online. So on a scale of 1 to 10, when you're doing an interval, if you're in your work phase, you want your work phase, depending on the length of time, to be between an 8 and a 9 usually. Now, if your work phase is going to be for 3 minutes, you might need to start at more like a 7 in order to sustain 3 minutes, because 3 minutes is quite a while to keep a work phase at a high intense rate. So maybe over the course of that 3 minutes, you would work from a 7 all the way up to maybe a 9, 9.5 by the end of that 3 minutes. When you're doing like a 30-second work phase, so your work phase is much shorter, then you want to just like go in and hammer it out. So 30 seconds, like start off at a 9 or so, where from the very beginning, you're like, oh my gosh, this is hard, but it's only 30 seconds. I know I can power through. And no matter how long your interval is, and no matter what your level of intensity is, you always want to feel like at the end of that interval, oh my gosh, I have to have a rest. So if you get to the end of your 20 sec or your 30 seconds or your 3 minutes and you think like, oh, I probably could keep going, that means you didn't push hard enough. So you want to really think of that scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like completely effortless sitting on the couch, 10 being so hard you could hold it for about 10 seconds. And then you want to work in that like 8 to 9 or 7 to 9 range, depending on the level, the length of the interval. And then when you're resting in your rest interval, you want to bring it down to like a 5 or so. So you really should feel like by the end of your rest interval, like, okay, I caught my breath and now I'm totally ready to do it again. I'm going to crush it this time. I'm going to work just as hard as I did last time, if not harder. In terms of the lengths of the intervals, that depends a lot on the person. And what I recommend starting out for people is having your rest interval and your work interval being equal, or having your rest interval being longer. So for a lot of women, I say start with a minute on and a minute off. But if that's too much, then start with 30 seconds on, 30 seconds of hard work, and a full minute of rest. So then you're getting double the recovery time. And if you're really working during that 30 seconds, you might need that full minute to rest, and that's totally fine. The metabolic benefit of really pushing for 30 seconds and then taking that minute off so that you can push again for 30 seconds is awesome. And so if you need that minute to rest, that's okay. As you get more conditioned, then you might notice like, okay, now I only need 45 seconds to rest and recover to be able to really crank it back up. And then maybe you can bring that down to 30 seconds. But if you're doing, a lot of formats I do will be like 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest. And if you get to the end of 30 seconds of rest and you go to do that next work phase and you can only bring it up to like a 6 or a 7 because you're just so dead, that means you didn't rest enough. So you can really play with that quite a bit. I have people work all the way up to like 3 minutes of work and 30 seconds of rest, but that's pretty extreme. And to be able to work intensely for 3 minutes takes some conditioning. So it really depends on where you're at. And I tell people, especially with my online program, it's all follow along stuff. And I just say, if you need to stop early, stop early. If you need to rest more, push pause. So you really should cater it to what's appropriate for you and your current level of conditioning, which is, just varies greatly from one mom to the next.
And intervals are great too, because it's a good way to gauge your fitness, how you're improving, where the scale may not always show how well you're doing or how bad you're doing for that matter. Right. Intervals, you're improving when your rest decreases, when you feel better after that short period of rest because you're getting more fit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's almost like a little mini test each workout you do.
Right. Yeah. I test myself on this. I do interval treadmill workouts once a week. And it's like every week I'm like, I'm going to try to rest less and push harder. And it's fascinating to see if I take, a couple of weeks off of doing that, then I might need a little extra recovery time, and that's okay. And then you just build it back up. So it's
very cool. Very cool. And now, earlier in this conversation, you had mentioned about how, moms want to, get their shape back again that they had. Now, I know with my experience, and I'm sure, you have this also, where you have a lot of moms who actually get in the best shape of their lives, even better than when they did have kids, even if they have multiple, 2 and 3 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what's, I guess, the expectations that you see for, a mom who hasn't worked out, she doesn't have the confidence in how she feels about herself, she wants to get in better shape again, that she can surpass, just getting to the point before she had kids?
So I see this actually quite a bit, and I see this in clients that come to me when they're pregnant and they haven't maybe worked out very much before. So they work out through their pregnancy and they build strength during their pregnancy, which you should only do supervised. You should not start like a crazy workout routine on your own when you're pregnant. But then they build strength and stamina during pregnancy, and then after they have the baby, that weight just falls off because they have this great conditioning kind of as a foundation for them. The other thing is that what is happening with a lot of moms that I see is that they're just so much better educated now than they were 5, 10 years ago on how to take care of their body. So a lot of moms throughout college maybe weren't really good to their body. They got out of college, they did the study, they were the cardio queens, so they did, their long cardio stuff on the treadmill, the elliptical. And then they had kids and they've been forced to seek professional advice and get into weight training and smarter cardio. And that's where they've just seen this dramatic change in their whole body because they're training smarter. And so they're really consistent with doing strength training, which maybe they've never done before. They're utilizing their cardio in a different way than they've ever done before. And then they're eating really smart and really clean. And a lot of this stuff comes from being in a more supervised formal training environment. So you're following a specific plan that someone's giving you, or you're meeting with a trainer. You're doing something where you have a little bit of guidance. You're not just kind of going at it haphazardly as maybe you have in the past in your life, because your time is so precious and so limited that you really have to use every trick and tool in a professional's toolbox to get you to where you want to be. And then it's awesome. I mean, I have one of my moms just had her 4th baby, and she's like the smallest, leanest she's ever been. And I'm jealous. Like, she looks amazing. So it's really just about training smarter than you ever have in your life. And I think there's so many trainers out there, Steve being one of them, myself, that we just know so much more than we did 5, 10 years ago. And so we are more than happy to share that information and make sure that it gets out there to empower moms.
Yeah, it's really incredible when you have someone who, used to be in fantastic shape. They, don't work out. And then when they revisit that a few years ago, everything has changed. All the advice, what we do, our techniques, because it really is advancing so quickly. And it's almost like every 6 months, something new comes on board. And, something we were doing a few years ago, we're no longer doing that because there's a better way. I mean, So it's really a great time right now to take up programs, follow the advice, because chances are you're going to get there much faster than, like when you were trying to get into shape. And same thing with me, when I was overweight, it took me so much longer because I was in the trial and error following programs that weren't as good as they are now.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I tell people. I tell people, learn from my mistakes. Like, I went the hard, long road. I'm happy to tell you how to do it way more easily.
Yeah. With less work and with less time.
Yeah. Yeah.